This video is for review 1 for the first test in algebra. So please make sure you have this out as well as your blue sheet. Sorry, I had it ready, I promise. That looks like this because this is what we're going to be following the order of for pretty much every single problem that we're solving for something. For problem 1, they asked us to solve the equation, show all steps. For this one, we have variables on both sides. So my first step is to subtract 5x from both sides. Remember, you can move the 7. It just leaves you with negatives, and so that makes your problem a little bit harder, whereas if you move the smaller one, it's a little bit easier. So we have 2x plus 2 equals 8. My second step is to box the term and move whatever's on the outside. So in this case, I'm moving 2. I move 2 by doing the opposite, so it becomes a negative, and I subtract. So 2x equals 6. From here, to get x by itself, 2 and x are being multiplied. Remember, if there's an invisible operation or if there's no operation listed, it's multiplication. In order to get rid of multiplication, we divide. So x will equal 3. To check, 7 times 3, plugging back in here. 7 times 3 is 21. 21 plus 2 is 25. 23. So 7 times 3 is 21. 21 plus 2 is 23. On the right side, 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 8 is 23. So x equals 3 is my answer, and I make sure I box or draw arrows or put hearts or circles or something so my teacher knows where my answer is. Problem 2, we have parentheses, so my first step is to distribute that 4 to both terms. If you need the in-between step, here it is. And this part stays the same. When I actually get rid of my parentheses and multiply on the left side, I have 8x minus 20, and this has stayed the same. We make sure we don't lose it. And now I catch in like what I did on problem 1. 5x is smaller than 8x, so I'm going to move it through subtraction, which is the opposite. So 3x minus 20 equals 4. Box 3x, move 20 by doing the opposite. The opposite of a negative is a positive. So 3x equals 24. Again, 3 and x are being multiplied, so I need to divide, and x will equal 8. Remember on the test to go back and check your work. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep going, but you would just plug in 8 anywhere you see x and make sure the left side matches the right. For this problem, we don't have any parentheses, we don't have any like terms that we can combine, we don't have terms on both sides, so we start pretty far down that flow chart. We draw our line down the equal sign, box our term. This is n divided by 4 minus 7. So to get rid of that minus 7, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So I'm left with n over 4 on the left side. Be careful on the right side. Negative 13 plus 7 is a negative 6. Remember, if you're ever unsure, plug it into your calculator just to double check. So negative 13 plus 7 is negative 6. So if you're not sure, especially with negatives, double check. Now, number 3, the part that most people are going to mess up on here, remember n is being divided by 4. To get rid of division, we need to multiply. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. On the left side, 4 divided by 4 cancels, and we're left with n. On the right side, negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. For problem 4, we have double distribution. So I'm going to distribute in different colors, and if no change is happening, I'm going to make sure I leave it in black so you can see it's not going anywhere. So the 12 in front and 7w in front on the right side and the left side are staying. And then negative 3 times 2w, negative 3 times 1, negative 3 times 7, negative 3 times w. And then to get rid of all the colors, all the parentheses, negative 3 times 2w here is negative 6w, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, negative 3 times negative 7 over here is negative 21, and then negative 3 times w is negative 3w. So I've gotten rid of my parentheses. Now I do have terms on both sides, but my first step is to combine them, because remember, when you start moving, you have to do the opposite, and you want to do as little moving as possible. So on the left side, I have positive 12 minus 3. So 12 minus 3 is 9. And then the negative 6w stays the same. And then 7w's minus 3w's is a total of 4w's minus 21. Now I'm ready to start moving. Negative 6w is smaller than 4w, so I'm going to add 6w's to both sides. Remember, you can move the 4 through subtraction, but you're going to end up with negative 10, and so just make sure that if you do decide to do that method, that's totally fine, but make sure you watch your negatives. I'm now going to add 21 to both sides to get it away from 10. I'm going to bring it over here. So 9 plus 21 is 30, and then 10w. And then my last step to get w by itself is divide both sides by 10. So w equals 3. Problem 5 is a tricky one that a lot of people missed on their quiz. Remember that on problem 5, that negative out front is distributed to the parentheses. That negative is like an invisible negative 1. So if it helps you, write your negative 1 and then circle it. Do not distribute the 19. The 19 stays out front, just like 17 stays in the back. So we have negative 1 times p and negative 1 times 3, which just gives me negative 1p minus 3, and the 19 and the 17 just come down because I haven't done anything with them yet. Now that I've gotten rid of my parentheses, I can combine some like terms. Over here I have 19 and negative 3. So 19 minus 3 is 16. So we have negative p plus 16 equals 17, so we've just cleaned it up a little bit. Now I'm ready to move, so I move the 16 by doing the opposite because it's on the same side as p but not directly attached. 17 minus 16 is 1. Now we have negative p by itself, but we need p, not negative p. Remember, again, this is like an invisible negative 1 being multiplied, so we need to divide. Make sure you do not add 1 to both sides. So 1 divided by negative 1 is just negative 1. Again, if you got 2, it's because you said, oh, negative 1p plus 1, which is not the operation that's happening. So make sure that you are watching your step on that. Again, with the double distribution, they sure do love the parentheses around here. 3 times m plus 3 times negative 2. The negative 5 stays. And 2 times m and 2 times negative 4. Remember, if you don't need this step, you don't have to write out every single tiny piece, but the biggest mistake that we see in distribution is people forgetting to multiply the second term, so it helps you out. 3 times m is 3m, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, negative 5 stays, 8 stays, 2 times m is 2m, 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. From here, I combine like terms. So on the left side, I have 3m minus 11 because negative 6 minus 5 becomes more negative. On the right side, I have 2m, and then I have 8 minus 8, which cancels. From here, I'm going to move 3m to the other side. Yes, it is not the smallest. However, if I move the 3m to the other side, I now have numbers on the left side and my m's on the right. If you move 2m, very important, if you move 2m, that is fine, but this is what's going to happen. You subtract 2m from both sides, and you will have m minus 11 equals 0. Then you would need to move the 11 still. So either way, it's going to be a two-step problem from here. So if you decide to move the 3m, you have your m's on one side and your numbers on the other. If you decide to move the 2m, make sure you leave this 0, because what's going to happen is people are going to say, oh, m and minus 11. Oh, my answer is m equals negative 11, which is not correct. So make sure you are not doing that. if something cancels, make sure you put equals 0. So to finish up over here, remember this is an invisible -1, so I divide both sides by -1. Negative divided by negative cancels, so m equals 11. For problem 7, those parentheses again. Do you think it's important to know how to do that? I hope you're saying yes. On the right side, nothing is changing. On the left side, 6 is staying, and we have -7 times a, -7 times 1. So that's just -7a minus 7, and everything else stays the same. Next, I'm going to combine my like terms. So -7a, and then 6 minus 7 is -1. On the right side, I can combine some a's, so -2a's plus 5a's is 3a's minus 6. From here, I'm going to move the smaller a. The smaller a is that -7a. So -1 equals 10a minus 6. Move the 6 by doing the opposite, so we add 6 to both sides. Remember, if you struggle with negatives, use your calculator. So 10a equals -1 plus 6 is 5. And then last step, divide by 10. Be very careful here. 5 divided by 10 is 1/2. Not 10 divided by 5, but 5 divided by 10. Whatever number's on top is being divided by the number on the bottom. Think about it in terms of money. If you had $5 and you wanted to split it between 10 people, everyone would get half a dollar. You would not have $2 for everybody if you only had $5 and 10 people. Problem 8, again with those parentheses. So 1/2 times 18x plus 1/2 times -36. 6x minus 12. On the left side, remember that when we multiply by 1/2, we make sure we multiply. So 1/2 of 18 is 9. 1/2 of -36 is -18. From here, we subtract 6x from both sides because 6 is smaller, and we subtract because it's the opposite. I box my term and add 18 to both sides. So 3x equals 6. And then last step, divide by 3. Now this time, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Okay, so make sure you see the difference between a big number divided by a smaller number and a small number divided by a bigger number. Because there is a difference. One's a fraction, one is not. These problems ask us to write an equation and solve. So problem 9, the length of a rectangle is 5 less than 4 times the width. The perimeter is 75. What is the length? So the length means equals 5 less than. Remember, less than is a switch word. So 5 is going to go in the back. 4 times the width is going to come in the front. Okay, so length equals 4w minus 5, and then they give us the perimeter. Do they tell us anything about the width? Do they say the width is something times the length, or the width is 15? No. So we are just going to leave the width alone. Now, on the top and bottom, instead of writing length, we are going to write what the length equals. So 4w minus 5, 4w minus 5. So because they didn't tell us anything about the width, we leave it alone. Because they told us something about the length, we replace L with what the length equals. To write my equation, the way you find the perimeter of anything ever is to add up all the sides. So 4w plus w plus 4w plus w is a total of 10 w's. -5 plus -5 is -10. And that equals your perimeter of 75. Now, some of you might be using the 2w plus 2l equals p method, which is fine. You, instead of adding up all the sides, would plug 4w minus 5 in for l, so it would look like this. And then plug in your perimeter and solve. You will get the same thing. I just think it's easier to label the picture and add them all up by hand. So, solving for w back over here, I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So 10w equals 85. Divide by 10. and W equals 8.5. Now, before I circle my answer, I'm going to go back and read what they asked for to make sure I'm good to go. And they said, what is the length? Of course they did. So remember, the length is 4W minus 5. So 4W, which we just found as 8.5, minus 5. And that would give us 29 millimeters. Problem 10. In a triangle, the longest side is 4 inches longer than 3 times the shortest. The third is 2 more than the shortest. The perimeter is 36. Find the length of the shortest. So they're telling us information about the longest, the third, and the shortest. They tell me the longest is 4 longer than 3 times the shortest. So the longest is 3 times the shortest plus 4. 4 more than or longer than 3 times the shortest. The third side is 2 more than the shortest, so the shortest plus 2. They don't give me information about the shortest, so I just assume it stays S. Again, to find the perimeter of anything ever, we add up all the sides. So 3S plus S plus S is a total of 5 S's. And then 4 plus 2 is 6. And this equals my perimeter of 36. In order to solve, I subtract 6 from both sides. So 5S equals 30. Divide both sides by 5, and S equals 6. Now let's see. They asked us to find the length of the shortest. Woohoo! Done. Oh, inches. Problem 11, we have a house painting company. We're comparing 2 different companies. They want to know where they are going to charge the same. So I'm looking for where these 2 are equal. For the first house, I will do it in green. It's a one-time fee of $376 plus 12 an hour. So 12 times hours, because we don't know how many hours. $376 is by itself because it's a one-time fee. The other company is $280 plus 15 per hour. So $280 for the first time plus 15 H. Remember, the fact that they are asking us when they will be the same is why we set them equal, because same and equal are the same. From here, I subtract 12H from both sides because 12 is smaller than 15. 376 equals 280 plus 3H. Subtract 280 from both sides. And 3H equals 96. And then divide by 3. H equals 32 hours. I remember that it's hours because I left my variable as H to help me remember the H at the end is hours. Problem 12, they ask us here if the equation F equals 9/5 C plus 32 changes Celsius to Fahrenheit temperature. If the Fahrenheit is negative 32.8, what is Celsius? So they give us our starting equation here, and then they tell us F equals negative 32.8. So for my equation down here, instead of writing the letter F, I'm going to write the number for F. So the number for F, 32.8, equals 9/5 C plus 32. To solve, I subtract 32 from both sides. So negative 64.8 equals 9/5 C. And then divide both sides by 9/5. Remember, this is super important to do and use your calculator with. When you use your calculator, you get negative 36 for C. So make sure you use that calculator, especially on those fractions. Problem 13. A 14-foot tree casts an 8-foot shadow. At the same time, a flagpole nearby casts a 10-foot shadow. How tall is the flagpole? So we have tree to shadow. A 14-foot tree casts an 8-foot shadow. How tall is the flagpole if it casts a 10-foot shadow? In order to solve, I butterfly or cross multiply. So 10 times 14 equals 8 times x. So 140 equals 8x. To simplify that out, to solve, I divide both sides by 8, and x equals 17.5 feet. Problem 14 is similar. To solve and get rid of our fractions, we butterfly, so 3 times 10. And we are super careful on this one. We have a -2 times all of the bottom, which is r plus 1. So be very careful. 3 times 10 is 30. -2r minus 2, because we distribute that. To solve for r, I add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to scoot over here. 32 equals -2r. Divide both sides by -2. And r equals -16. Mr. James bought 4 tacos and a drink for $11.35. So just to write this out for us, 4 tacos plus drink equals $11.35. They continue on to tell us that the drinks are 99 cents. So instead of D, I'm going to put 99 cents. What is the cost of each taco? So to rewrite this, 4 tacos plus 99 cents, which comes from the second sentence, equals $11.35. And now to solve. I subtract 99 cents from both sides. 4t equals $10.36. Divide both sides by 4, and t equals $2.59. Problem 16 says 3 more than 25% of a number is equivalent to the difference of that number and 9. So 3 more than means plus. 25% of a number, remember we have to, Beyonce is the queen of percents because we move them to the left. So 0.25% of tells us to multiply a number. We don't know what that number is, so we'll use n. So 0.25 times n equals the difference of a number and 9. So a number and 9, difference means difference means subtract. And remember that the and supersedes or comes after the difference. So difference is more important here, which is why we subtract. So to rewrite my equation, 3 plus 0.25 n equals n minus 9. And then we're going to solve. I subtract 0.25 n from both sides. So 3 equals 0.75 n minus 9. Remember, this is an invisible 1, so $1 minus 25 cents is 0.75 cents. I add 9 to both sides, so 12 equals 0.75 n. And then divide both sides by 0.75. Excuse me, and n equals 16. Problem 17, Alex is selling poinsettias for the band. He needs to sell 55, so far he has sold P. What represents a number that he still needs to sell? So he has 55 to sell. He's already sold. He's already taken out. So because we're taking out, we're going to subtract. He's starting by knowing he needs to sell 55 and taking out the number that he sold P. So that's going to look like part A. Part D would be he needs to sell an unknown amount but has already sold 55. Part A is he needs to sell 55 and has already sold an unknown amount. 18, Haley can buy the latest Harry Potter book online for $21.95. Shipping and handling is a one-time charge. Remember, one-time charge is just a charge by itself. So we're looking for something plus that by itself. So I could take out A because it's not by itself and D because these are not by themselves. Which expression can be used to find the cost of buying B books? So we don't know how many books we're buying, but the book costs $21.95 each, so times B, which would be answer choice C. Problem 19, they ask us to solve for F. So the first thing I'm going to do, because the parentheses are what I need to deal with last, I'm going to divide by 5/9 first. So C divided by 5/9 equals F minus 32. And then I will add 32 to both sides. Now remember the C minus 5/9, or sorry, C divided by 5/9 is all stacked together, and I am adding 32 to it. So I can't add 32 to 5/9 or anything crazy like that. I have C being divided by 5/9, and I'm adding 32. Now, if you would like, you could also write the reciprocal 9/5 times C plus 32 equals F. Either of these would be correct. You can say C is being divided by 5/9 or flip your fraction and multiply. It's the same idea. Problem 20, which equation below shows a correct first step for solving? What I always like to do first myself is to solve it. So because x is being divided by 5, we need to multiply by 5. So x would equal negative 100. So my first step was to multiply by 5, not add, not subtract, not divide further, but multiply. The next three, they want us to write an equation without solving, so we're just writing. Teresa withdrew $25 from her savings account. After she did that, she only has $6 left. How much was in her account before? So she has some amount in there. We don't know how much. She withdraws, which means to take away or subtract. So she takes away $25 from that, and now has a total balance of $6. So A minus 25 equals 6 would represent that situation. 22, anytime I see two sentences with information, I like to try to split them up. Asan has or equals 6 CDs more than Camelio. If Asan has 25, I'm going to plug in 25 for A. So 25 would equal 6 plus Camelio. The sum of an integer and 25 means equals 6. Write an equation. Well, there we did. There we are. Okay, two more problems. Which inequality has a solution represented by the graph below? Hint, to figure it out, you're going to have to work all 4 equations. So let's work them. Kind of similar steps to what we were doing at the front on the front page. Distribute 7x, so 7x minus 14. Everything else stays the same. Oops, sorry. Combine like terms, so negative x is greater than 6x minus 14. For this problem, I'm going to move the x to the other side, so I don't have to flip my sign. So 7x minus 14. Add 14 to both sides. So 14 is less than 7x. Divide by 7. So 2 is less than x. Now looking at my solution, I can see I had a solution at negative 3, and it's everything greater than. So a huge hint here is that on problem A, it equals 2, not negative 3. So I'm not looking at that one. For this problem, combine my like terms. So 13 minus 8 plus 6 is 11. Yeah. So 2v plus 11, negative. Add v to both sides. So 3v plus 11 is greater than negative 7. Subtract 11. 3v is greater than negative 18. Divide by 3. V is greater than negative 6. Negative 6 is not negative 3, so it is not answer choice B. For D, this one all I have to do is start moving. I don't have any of the parentheses or combining and all that. So 28 is greater than or equal to 8k minus 4. Add 4 to both sides, so 32 is greater than or equal to 8k. Divide by 8. 4 is greater than or equal to k. So it's not D. So let me look at answer choice C. I subtract a from both sides, so negative 6 is less than or equal to 15 plus 7a. Subtract 15 from both sides, so negative 21 is less than or equal to 7a. Divide both sides by 7, negative 3 is less than or equal to a. That one would be my answer choice. Okay. Now, just a quick little thing over on A and B. If we notice, this is filled in. So my sign needs to be one of these. A and B did not have the line under the inequality, so I can most likely knock those two answer choices out. Not always the case, but is usually the case. So that's just something else to kind of help you narrow it down to less options, especially if you're running out of time. And the last one, 25. The solution of this equation has an error. Identify which step the error occurred and explain the mistake they made. So if I'm working out this problem, I'm going to take 6 and distribute it. So I would have 4x equals 6x plus 24 minus 2 because I have to distribute. And just to work it out first so I can try to find the mistake, 6x plus 22. Let's see, they move 6x to the other side because it's by itself. So subtract 6x from both sides. Negative 2x equals 22. Divide by negative 2 and x equals negative 11. So those would be my steps. Now in step 1, they don't have the same thing that I do here because they did not distribute. So they didn't distribute 6 to both terms in the parentheses. And as you can see, x should equal negative 11. They wrote that it equals negative 1. So that does make a difference on your problem. So make sure that you distribute on that test.